You just watched Eraserhead. And just like I saw the TV glow, a lot of you want an explanation for what you just watched. However, unlike I saw the TV glow, you don't get one. That's not how Lynch really works. So what we can do is talk about this movie and what I think you can take away from it. But a lot of this stuff isn't exactly
That's for a cool
one-for-one metaphor. There's not an exact meaning in all of this. I told you, I gave you the watch notes. Eraserhead at its core is about Lynch himself kind of expressing the feeling of being trapped in a normal life and his disdain for normal life. And whereas a lot of horror directors ask you a question, what nightmare lies in the dark? Lynch's question is your life already a fucking nightmare? And I think that's why a lot of Lynch's stuff is so unnerving, because it's not a creation of creatures or a spinning of yarn. It's more just a shift of perspective that moves normal life into this kind of like uncanny valley territory. And it really, really, really is horrific and horrifying and awful. I saw a lot of you didn't enjoy this movie, and I'll be honest, I'm not really a Lynch fan either. I've mentioned this on many different occasions. I to varying extents enjoy Lynch's stuff. And I like Eraserhead. I think it's okay. I think Blue Velvet is by far his best project ever. But I've never really been so much for Lynch. I'm ultimately always really a storyteller guy rather than a visual, kind of surrealist artist. But Lynch comes about that very naturally. He quite literally was a surrealist visual artist before he was a filmmaker. And that shows through in every single panel of Eraserhead. Eraserhead took forever to make. It took years and years and years.
That's for cool.
They should play this in the waiting rooms of every Planned Parenthood.
Real.
On loop.
Real. And Jack Nance apparently had this Eraserhead haircut forever. While they were making the movie. It was made for like $100,000. And when this movie came out, no one liked it. When it first came into box offices, it was like way too much for people. And then after the initial theater run, there were some fans who were like, wait a minute, I kind of fuck with this. Like, this is really cool. And kind of by word of mouth, and also like a lot of theaters choosing to show it beyond its theatrical run and having almost like cult screenings of this, like Rocky Horror Picture Show. It put together a massive fan following that eventually made the film millions of dollars. And beyond that, kind of set up the career of one of the most influential American filmmakers of all time, David Lynch. So it really is an interesting project. I know some people, a kid I grew up with, Simon, always thought this was like the best movie ever made. And I think for those people where like the thought of working a 9-to-5 and living in a nuclear family is like a fate worse than death, I think Eraserhead very much scratches that itch. There's so much about this movie, like Mary kind of just being nightmarish and cruel in her own simple way, and like almost snaring him into this life. Obviously, the woman across the hall. I don't know if there's ever a filmmaker that has ever captured the feeling of being a normal man when you feel the weight of an attractive woman pursuing you and you're like kind of not into it. I've always loved that in Eraserhead. Like, you can tell that Henry is scared to death of the woman across the hall. And I think that last shot when you see her with that like grotesque man is like just so like, oh, like there's something awful about it. The song that you heard actually became a very kind of successful song in its own way. And it was credited to the lady in the Radiator. It's called Heaven. But this is actually Lynch singing, which I always think is so interesting. Yeah, if you listen to it, it is Lynch. It's just a little pitched up, I think. But it sounds like him. So that's a very interesting part of this little story. So, I mean, you guys, what did you think? Did some of you enjoy this movie? Did some of you despise this movie? While you were writing that, the one other thing I wanted to cover is the censorship in this movie is ridiculous. I don't know what YouTube is on. There's nothing in this movie that could really be interpreted as offensive in any way whatsoever. And basically what they censored was blood. The only thing you missed was really blood. Like, none of it was essential to the plot. And if you go back and watch it, you're not going to be like, oh, wow, I really missed out on the meaning of this film because of that shot. But it's just ultimately very disappointing that something like YouTube is like so puritanical about showing like shots of blood. I don't understand that at all. I was kind of baffled by it. Obviously, you know, we're very limited in what we can show because of copyright law. I pretty much can only show stuff on YouTube free movies. And so if that's something that bothers you, maybe tweet Twitch to bring back Amazon Prime watch parties so I can watch projects with like, you know, nudity and violence and stuff in it without having to worry about being banned from the platform. I always have found it a bigger conversation about this. I've always found it really interesting that like film is censored so differently as opposed to every other form of artistic expression. There's something about stuff being rendered in film that like we feel like we must protect people from, even in the year 2026. And to a certain extent, like I understand protecting very young people from like, I guess, extreme violence, but this is really, really strange up and down the decisions there. And I'm sorry that you didn't get the film in its original form. I get why this is such an important movie, just not scratching my itch. It was good to watch, but not something I'd want to watch again. So again, I told you that's this movie for me and most Lynch projects. I have never been a Lynch fan. And a lot of people tell me that I'm just wrong for that. I love Blue Velvet. I've watched Blue Velvet many times. I think a lot of the Lynchisms work very well. But the thing about Lynch that kind of just like bothers me is his most influential work, not Dune, not Elephant Man, not stuff like that. He doesn't give a fuck about the narrative. It's not something that he like thinks is important. What he thinks is important is creating a feeling. And he's very much the kind of director where he's like, oh, wow, I think that's going to look cool. Yeah, put that in there. Fuck it. Like that was his whole aesthetic, is that he was just kind of like always doing what he wanted. And sometimes it hits. Like there are a lot of shots within Lynch movies where I'm like, damn, he pured it. That is it right there. And then there's other stuff in Lynch movies where I'm like, all right, yeah, I get it. Like, I get it. Um, the sound was really effective. Yeah, sound in this movie's it's like a lot of tinnitus and like background scenes. Um, Not gonna lie, I thought David Lynch was David Spade this entire time. That's crazy. I didn't like or dislike this movie. I think it is something I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise, but I'm glad to have seen it. I work with people who have experienced postpartum depression, and I feel like this movie touched really well on those types of turmoil parents can go through after birth. Yeah, I think that's a great take on this. And I think ultimately, if you've never seen a visual art film, like a film without any narrative at all, this movie is kind of like the bridge. And it's interesting. I like how obviously afraid he was of the woman across the hall. Obviously, it can be interpreted as cheating, but also maybe I'm projecting, but it kind of sort of felt like a metaphor allegory for assault. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily like sexual violence as much as it is like a feeling of powerlessness that I think he's trying to convey. I've always felt like the woman across the hall kind of like has the eyes of a predator, not like a sexual predator, but like a lion or a wolf or something like that. And he is almost like a prey animal. And it feels like he is kind of helpless to whatever she decides to do. Right? Like there's this feeling that like she is just she terrifies him so much just in that she exists as this like beautiful person with confidence and agency. And that is so alien to him as his entire life has kind of been forced on him or inherited. Like the man had sex one time and it led to him getting married and raising this mutant baby. And like his job, obviously there's some commentary on like they're literally just drilling his head for whatever they can get out of it. I mean, that's a metaphor so on its face. Like, come on, like you go into your workplace and they just fucking drill your brains. Like, yes, he's making those statements. So I think Lynch is basically showing you that like this timid man is kind of inheriting his life and how terrifying that is to kind of just be a passenger in your life. So this beautiful person across the hall with agency is like the most like otherworldly alien thing to him. Can you help me understand what the cord of flesh recurs through the film? I think that's probably like uterus and like placenta and like uterine lining and the umbilical cord. Like there's a lot of like sperm and vaginal and umbilicus imagery throughout this film. What the hell is the sick man by the window doing there? Is he Henry's future vision of the baby? No, I think that's God. I actually think that's Lynch's vision of God. Like that's him giving life is like that ineffectuate, disgusting crank. Like that's how Lynch views being given the gift of life, right? Is this like acne covered monster just flipping a switch and being like, welcome to the world, pussy. Autistic rumors, you say? It made Courage the Cowardly Dog make so much more sense. Yeah, dude. That is one thing I will say. Whenever I show a movie from like the 80s and beyond, it is always amazing to see like how many projects they inspire. And dude, Eraserhead is like one of the pieces of the foundation of experimental cinema and horror. And like, dude, this movie is about as influential as it gets. Your favorite filmmaker likes Eraserhead. You know what I mean? Like your favorite filmmaker, if you somehow met like, I don't know, Coogler and were like, hey, have you ever seen Eraserhead? He'd be like, it's just one of those movies. This comes across as a natural endpoint of the early German surrealist movement in film. You mentioned Lynch's background in the visual arts. But do you know more specifically how invested Lynch was to making this movie complete? Puppetry, animation, score in its surrealism. I don't know what your question means. How invested Lynch was to making the movie complete in its surrealism. I don't know what that means. He was very committed. He spent years and years and years. I think he spent 5 years on this film. So like, yes, he was enormously committed, and he stretched $100,000 budget way beyond probably what most filmmakers could stretch it. He built all those sets. Like that was a labor of love. Stop motion animation at the time was an intense labor of love. Like all the puppetry was like basically stuff he was engineering. And he got this he did this like visual art exhibition that was like a moving painting. And that's how he got the budget for this. It's all very strange. I don't know if Lynch set out to be like, let's make an impressionist film. Like, this is what I am trying to do. Lynch has always struck me as the kind of guy who is like, yeah, I'm going to do this now. Yeah, this scene will be funny. All right, this one will be a nightmare. Oh, it'd be great. Let's make her cheeks gross. Like that's kind of, I don't know if it is as a devotion to impressionist art as you would think, or more Lynch's steadfast commitment to like create art almost in like a fugue state that has to be apropos of nothing. Like there are many times that Lynch has like talked about scenes that like inspired whole generations of filmmakers, and like his commentary on it is just like, yeah, I just decided to do that. Like there's one very famous, while we're on the subject, I was never like a fan of Lynch, but I was almost like hopelessly fascinated by him, I would say, where there was a lot of time that I spent just like trying to understand a lot of like Lynchisms because they were so bizarre. I was Lynch curious. And there's this one scene in this movie called Lost Highway. Here, I'll show it to you. I'll give you a little taste of it.
We've met before, haven't we?
I don't think so. Where was it you think we met?
At your house, don't you remember?
No, I don't. Are you sure?
Of course. As a matter of fact, I'm there right now.
What do you mean you're where right now?
At your house.
That's fucking crazy, man.
call me. Dial your number. Go ahead. I told you I was here.
How'd you do that?
Ask me.
How'd you get inside my house?
You invited me. It is not my custom to go where I'm not wanted.
Who are you?
Give me back my phone.
Babo Kupo, you make a good point. This scene sums up what you said about Lynch's style. Only interesting scenes, ideas that lead to nowhere. Okay, so like this scene haunted me. He is literally death. That's a good concept. That's a good idea. But no, he's not literally death. In fact, this scene doesn't connect to the movie in any other way, which is true of a lot of Lynch scenes. What this stems from, and Lynch talked about it because a lot of people were fascinated by this scene, as was I. Lynch just said, yeah, one night I was drinking and somebody hit the call box and said, David Lynch? And I said, yeah. They said, I'm at your front door. And I said, okay. And by the time I put on my robe and got to the front door, there was no one there. And I thought that was really creepy, so I put it in a movie. That's almost verbatim. That's almost verbatim. Like how he wrote this scene, why he put it in the movie. And like, there's part of me that like, as I get older, I think it reminds me of like Aphex Twin, in that there's a part of me that like, there's so much admiration for an artist that is like so not precious about what they do because they're so fucking talented and they don't care about like putting together something commercial or like something that like works on like a full like cinematic level. They just want to present their like ideas to you on a level that like they want to. And that's all they care about. And there's a part of me that's like, God, that is so fucking cool. How are you so impossibly cool? How do you not care what anyone thinks? Like, how do you not, like, when you write that scene and it's so good, how is there not a temptation to like create some kind of narrative arc that justifies it or tie it into the plot or for fuck's sake, lie about it? You know what I mean? If I'm Lynch and I make like one of the great suspenseful scenes of all time and someone asks me the inspiration, I'll probably be like, yeah, it's death. It's a metaphor for death. And then all these young college kids and the film fans like me can be like, dude, Lynch is talking about death. This is amazing. But instead, he's so unabashedly honest that he's like, yeah, I was just drunk and I took too long to answer the door. Like, how can you be so confident in your own art that you strip it of meaning intentionally? Like, think about that. Lynch could have assigned any fucking meaning he wanted to that scene, and you would have eaten it up because it was great. You would have gone along with it. He could have said that that was a metaphor for like Ho Chi Minh Square or Tiananmen Square, and you would have been like, oh, dude, look. Here are the tank treads in the background. You know what I mean? Like, you're searching for meaning. Whenever you are confronted by amazingly made art, you're always searching for meaning. And I think sometimes to an extent that's almost like a detriment. There are some times that like people will ask questions in this chat where I'll be like, damn, that person's really plugged in. That's a great idea. And then there are other times people will ask questions in this chat where I'll be like, At no point did the artist intend that fucking at all. How the fuck did this person glean this insane meaning from like, what tea leaves are they even looking at? And I think there's merit to both sides of that. Going in and not searching for meaning, or going in and searching for meaning. And I think Lynch ultimately does something that not many other filmmakers ever have done, which is he doesn't fucking care. He doesn't care how you receive the film. He doesn't care if you get it. He doesn't care if you dig deeper. He's just going to fucking put the vibes out there. He's going to make the project he wants to make, and that's it, which is really fucking cool. So I want to make something clear. I've always said I'm not a big fan of Lynch's filmmaking style because I am a narrative guy. But I want to make something else clear. Never, ever, ever will you hear me talk shit about this guy. I hold him with so much fucking reverence. I might not be the biggest fan of his work. It might not specifically appeal to me because I think Lynch and I are about as different an artist as you can be. But God damn it, I respect him. I respect the fuck out of him. And I think that's something great. And it's why I show movies like Eraserhead. And it's why you sometimes
this is the best
should watch
Lynch /
art.
Eraserhead.
You sometimes should watch art that like isn't immediately in your wheelhouse, right? In the same way that like if you just sit in an echo chamber forever, you're never going to get a difference of opinions. The same is true of art. If you only sit in an echo chamber for art, you're only going to be exposed to like one kind of film, one kind of narrative, one kind of worldview, and you're going to limit yourself in your experience again. And sometimes, just sometimes, there is a project like Blue Velvet, which is like, for me, it's a perfect film. It's by a filmmaker that I don't really connect with, but all of a sudden I was like, yes, here it is. I'm glad I stuck this out. I'm glad I've watched every single Lynch product, because at the end of the day, did I fucking love Twin Peaks? No. Mulholland Drive, I liked it. Lost Highway, a little weird. Dune, it's fun. Eraserhead, not my bag. Blue Velvet, perfect. 10 out of 10. Life-changing. So, I mean, these are just my takes. You don't have to agree with me. I've kind of been a famous, like a person who is not the biggest Lynch guy. But I really, 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 really think Eraserhead is worth watching. And if you enjoyed Eraserhead, I would challenge you to go watch Blue Velvet. I think it's his best project ever. Anyway, that's film night. This is my second stream of the day. I'm absolutely fucking exhausted. I felt my body giving out at one point there, but I just kind of powered through. I hope you enjoyed. Let's take this. Hold on one sec. And I'm back. Thank you, Will, for the first viewing of Eraserhead. No problem. Will, you mentioned his IRL child had physical difficulties. Yeah, she had very clubbed feet. How much of the portrayal of the baby do you think was meant to portray his feeling towards the child versus how society reacts to physical disabilities? Was it also a commentary about ableism or just his own internal experience? Again, tap the sign. I don't know if he ever intends something directly, but Jennifer Lynch is in the movie. The daughter in question is the little girl in the film. So, like, when you say a child with difficulties, like,
Yes.
Jennifer Lynch is in the movie. She's the little girl in the movie. So, you know, she became a director too. Yeah. I think a lot of the relationship with the child is much more closely fixated on Lynch's own terror around being a father and how having a child with physical difficulties added an extra layer of terror, where I think taking care of an able-bodied kid is hard and taking care of a kid with special needs is even harder. So I don't think a lot of like the mutant baby is meant to inspire like a feeling of how he feels about disability, but rather it's meant to exacerbate his own feelings of inadequacy taking care of a child, and how that physical affect created more stress on the marriage that he had in his home, and how that stress created even more distance between he and his spouse. I really don't think it's much of a commentary about how society or about, you know, like how his daughter was viewed. I think a lot of people see the mutant baby and think that like Lynch might have viewed his kid as a mutant, but ultimately, like every character in this movie is a mutant. I think Lynch thinks everybody is a fucking mutant. Like every single fucking character in this movie is horrific. So it's not like the baby that represented his child was like an exception to that. Um, do you think that there's a funeral for the mutant baby? There's also, do you think, did you know there was a funeral for the mutant baby? There's also a conspiracy that Lynch was trying to bury evidence. The dissection of the cat and a veterinarian being credited along with the production manager lying to local hospitals about how they'd use real human umbilical cords on set. Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of rumors about this. Let me clear this up very fast. There is like a deleted scene where they use a dead cat and Lynch like taxidermied the cat himself. I don't know, something like that. I can't recall offhand. And from this moment, like a million rumors about this film have spawned. And what I would say is, what I would compare it to is Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off the fucking bat, right? Ozzy, towards the end of his life, was like, I thought it was a rubber bat. I thought someone threw a rubber bat on stage, and so I bit it, and it was a real fucking bat, and I never would have done it if I knew that it was a real bat. I think the same is like kind of true here, where like the rumors around Ozzy exploded because of this fucking bat moment. You know what I mean? Like even when I was like a 7-year-old, I remember people telling me, like before the internet existed, like what a legend Ozzy Osbourne was, and that he was like a satanic ageless beast who, you know, was like a vampire. You know, there are all these like crazy, and then the internet happened and kind of everything lost its mystery. But Eraserhead was one of those movies because it was such a cult classic. You know what I mean? Like if you ever watched Eraserhead in the theater, you probably watched it at like an Alamo Draft House after hours in like the 1980s. You know, like in the same week that they showed Rocky Horror. It was just, or like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It was just like one of those cult movies that was around forever. So because of this scene with like the mutilated cat, so many rumors have spread with like the real umbilical cords, or this being some kind of confession about a dead child. I don't know. You'd have to look more into it. To my understanding, it's all bullshit. I think if there were any truth to it in the age of the internet, Lynch probably would have gone down before he died. But then again, Jeffrey Epstein got away with it, so who knows? Brother. Mel Brooks became lifelong friends and supporter and producer of David Lynch after he saw this movie and met Lynch. Yeah, I mean that there are a lot of great examples of like one artist seeing another artist's, work and being like, holy shit, this is it. This is fucking it. I'm all the way in. Which is why I always say, like, release everything you make. If there are any artists in here, get it out there. Don't sit on the art you make. You never know who's going to see your work and, put you on. I did a film scoring class in college, and our prof made us do the baby in the apartment scene with real Foley effects. So we had to make a radiator whistle and deform baby sounds from the real world. Great teacher, great class. Dude, you know what's interesting? I had a teacher like that when they were teaching Foley. This is kind of an old factoid. Singing in the Rain, the main singing in the rain. I'm singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling. I'm happy again. That entire scene is Foley. So all the tap dancing is Foley. And the way that they did it is the Foley artist hot glued bottle caps to his fingers and tapped it out near a mic. And our teacher said that he would he did it all in one take too. He did it all in one take. And so, our teacher said if anybody could do the whole tap dancing scene in one take, he would give them an A. And there was one very neurodivergent kid in our class who did it at the end of the semester. Like no one else took it serious. And he fucking nailed it. And we in this film class, we all sat there and we were like, and I've never experienced this. Our teacher was like, well, you missed one of them. And every kid in the class went, boo, give him his A, boo. And we all booed him. And he's like, no, he missed one. And we kept booing him. And he's like, he's got an A in the class anyway. He doesn't even need to do it. He did it for the love of the game. And we were like, give him his A. And finally he backed down and was like, all right, you get your automatic A. Anyway, Kubrick said it's his favorite movie. Interesting. Yeah, as I said, like when this movie came out, it was on like anything before it. Hey, illiterate guy from before meant how many different component technical fields he went into this. Building your project to make as many masterpieces, essentially creating an artistic entity without unique, distinct parts that could live on their own. I don't know that. I think Lynch had at least a cursory understanding of set design, puppetry, claymation, stop motion before the film, because he was a purely visual, like he was like an expressionist visual artist. And so I think, honestly, I'm telling you, I keep trying to say this. When you talk about plans, like Lynch is the last guy. Lynch is he's not the plan guy. Like Kubrick is the plan guy. Kubrick went into every project with like no stone unturned and like everything mapped out by a fucking scale diorama and like thousands of passes on the script. Lynch, like, go watch his interviews. He literally was the guy who was always like, yeah, all right, let's film this now. Okay. I'm going to have a cigarette. That's his whole vibe. Like he is the coffee and cigarettes guy. Like he would just rip butts and drink coffees and be like, all right, we've only filmed for 2 hours. I I'm okay though. I'm okay. We're gonna end for today. We're not. Yeah, I'm okay. We're good. You know, like that's how he was on set. So which is why everyone loves Lynch too. Like when you talk about like being the vibe director that like anyone who ever met him was like Lynch was the fucking man. Like pretty much anyone who ever met Lynch was like David was pretty much the coolest person ever. Like he was just like too weird to live, too rare to die, his own fucking beast, just a impossibly friendly, effortlessly cool weirdo. Um all right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a night. Do you think Lynch would have liked the back rooms? Yes. I think he would have fucking loved that. That would have been 100%. Okay. I hope you learned something tonight. I know some of you enjoyed it. I know some of you are already Lynch fans. So you're like, yay. But for the rest of you, just chalk it up that you watched something important and I'll get you on the next one. Next Wednesday, we'll watch a movie for everybody. All right, guys, that was my second stream of the day. I'm at like 9 hours streaming today. I'm absolutely fucking cooked. Will, has your Smosh stuff come out yet? No, it has not. Hopefully it comes out soon. I think they backlogged a bunch of stuff because they were moving into the new studio. But anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. New outro when? I don't know. Cosmic Irony was making it, and then their like house partially burnt down, and I never want to push them, but as soon as I hear from Cosmic, we'll get that new outro. Stay dangerous, everybody. Good.